Hello everyone, I'm Henry and welcome to this informative video. To begin with, sometimes we don't say exactly what we say and yet we still manage to understand each other. For example, if you ask me is it raining, and when I come inside of the house soaking wet and I say great job Sherlock Holmes, you will probably assume that I'm being sarcastic rather than giving you a compliment. The reason we can figure out what's going on is because we don't just look at words and sentences for meaning. We also look at context, and the area that puts meaning into context is called pragmatics. What pragmatics studies? Pragmatics examines how speakers communicate more than they actually say. Its main focus on contact, interaction, shared knowledge, and indirect meaning. For example, if someone says, "It's cold here," they may not be describing the temperature, they may be suggesting to close the window. And then we have the types of context in pragmatics. Physical context includes location, objects, and environment. Then we have the social context that includes the relationship between speakers, for example, between friends, teachers, and students, etc. Then we have cultural context, norms, politeness, and customs. And the last one, the type of context, we have linguistic context, and that includes the previous sentence in the conversation.
Now I will explain the main components of pragmatics. These components help us understand how people express meaning that goes beyond the little words they say. The first one is indexes. The main components of pragmatics. These components help us understand how people express meaning that goes beyond the little words they say. The first one is indexes. Indexes refers to words or expression whose meaning depends on the entirely context. So, in other words, you cannot understand this expression unless you know who, when, and where the speaker is. For example, time indexes. An example of this is the meeting is tomorrow, but the word tomorrow changes depending on the days of speaking. Then we have place indexes. An example is right there. So we need to know the speaker's location to understand the word there. In summary, indexes show how language depends on the immediate situation. Then we have implication. So implication happens when the speaker suggests something something that is not explicitly. For example, some of the students passed. So the implication is none of them pass. So the speaker only says some, so we need extra information. Then we have speech acts. So according to Austin and Tiroli, when we speak, we don't just communicate, we perform actions. An example of this is, "Can you pass me the salt?" So literally it asks about ability, but the intention is a request. So to sum up, pragmatics includes key elements and all of them show how meaning depends on context rather than only on the word themselves. Now my partner is going to...
Hello everyone. Right now I'm going to talk about inference, conversation structure, and relevant theory. First, we have inference. Inference is the process by which listeners interpret meaning beyond the literal words. Example, if someone says, "John's car is outside," we infer that John is probably inside. This shows how communication often relies on logical deduction and shared knowledge. Then we have conversation structure, and we have that pragmatics also explains how conversation work. It includes, for example, third talking, that is knowing when to speak, agency, pairs, that is predictable sequence like question, answers, or greeting. Repairs, that is correcting misunderstanding. Topic management, that is how people start, maintain, or change a topic. This rule helps conversation flow smooth. Then we have a relevance theory. This is proposed by Sperber and Wilson. This theory says that people communicate in the most relevant way possible, maximum meaning and minimum effort. Listeners choose the interpretation that makes the most sense in the context. This explains why we understand jokes, sarcasm, or hints even when they are indirect. And finally, to finish this informative video, I want to say something that is why pragmatics matters. Pragmatics is important because it explains how real communication works beyond literal meaning. It helps prevent misunderstanding. It is essential in cross-cultural communication. Language learners needed to use expression naturally and politely. It helps us understand humor, indirectness, sarcasm, request, etc. To conclude, pragmatics is the study of meaning in context. It considers the situation, the speaker's intention, cultural norms, and the relationship between participants. Through concepts such as implicature, speech acts, presupposition, inference, and relevance theory, pragmatics help us understand how people communicate effectively in real life. Without pragmatics, language will be limited to literal meaning and many messages would be misunderstood.